Welcome to Resilience Unravelled. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Thackeray. This podcast is a result of my fascination with health issues, resilience, performance, mental health, accountability and critical thinking, along with many of the other obsessions I bump into in my life. I spend my time working with highly successful teams, organisations and people, and this podcast introduces their remarkable stories, as well as my synthesis of the key issues, tips and strategies to thrive in life. If you find this podcast useful, you can also find other information at qedod.com or russellthackeray.com. Stay tuned to the end for details of how to order a free ebook. Enjoy the podcast. So hi everybody, something a little bit different today, a little bit more light-hearted, a little less sort of serious, but hopefully with a few useful things for you. I thought it would be a good idea just to help pop together some ideas about how to cope with Christmas and perhaps get a sort of steal on 2019 by thinking a bit more or a bit differently about your resolutions and all the pressure that comes with this sort of period of time. And again, as I say, it's going to be a nice short podcast with a few sort of techniques and some bits and pieces for you. So the first thing to think about Christmas is that for a lot of people, Christmas is the most important point of the year. It's sort of symbolic, it means something, maybe they're very religious, and then there's something really special and magical about Christmas. And I think the first thing to say about the whole period is that it's one of where mixed expectations can come to rest. So if you've not discussed, what you're expecting in terms of presents, whether you're buying for a family or one person in the family, if you've had a budget or not had a budget, would you be disappointed if you got one small thing that was very thoughtful but worth a tenner versus 100 things which aren't thoughtful but cost a lot of money? This idea of expectations is really, really important. If you're having people over for Sunday lunch, are you expecting to give them the perfect time? Or if you're having family and you haven't seen them for a while, are you expecting that it's going to be difficult, or are you expecting that it's going to be a breeze? Or, what is it? What is in your head as you approach this festive season? Because one thing's for sure, whatever expectations you have, how much work, therefore, you have created for yourself to the point of being overwhelmed is the extent to which you're going to have a series of pressure points. And as we know, that pressure is sort of something that's in your head, really, that actually the degree of pressure you're experiencing, and then often from that, the consequent stress is the thing that's actually going to make your Christmas and this period of time enjoyable or not. So let's think about that. So there's a couple of things to bear in mind. If you've got children, have you managed their expectations about what is going to be under the tree this year, or what they're going to be getting or not getting? If you're on your own this Christmas, have you managed people's expectations that actually you're either happy with that or you're not, and you want some help or whatever that might be? One of the things that's really lovely at Christmas is to have time to be able to help somebody else other than yourselves. And a lot of people say this, that actually this is a really interesting time of the year, that giving something to somebody that has nothing is very symbolic, and actually giving your time sometimes to people like Christ at Christmas or any of the other sorts of charities is a very fulfilling thing to do. Now, if you've not got time for that, but you want to do it, you've just simply not allowed time in your schedule to think about that. And so there's still time, whatever time it is, to be able to affect your Christmas in a positive sort of way. I mean, everyone talks about this idea of planning ahead. In fact, I was listening to an article this morning that said you can cook your entire Christmas dinner, I should say, the day before, so that the time you spend on Christmas Day is only 1 hour of cooking, because everything else has been pre-prepared and is microwavable or is cookable in an hour or something, in one pan. So that's quite an impressive thing. And I think actually people go all out on Christmas Day and have 3 types of meat, 18 types of vegetable, hundreds of different types of puddings and such like, and really why? I think one of the things we've got to recognise in this age of sort of want and austerity and general miserableness, and certainly in the UK at the moment a little bit, is that actually we don't need to go mad all the time. It seems mad to me, for example, that people get themselves into debt at Christmas. It seems mad to me that you'll be eating in such a way that it means that you have to spend the next 3 months getting rid of those pounds. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing like a bit of a Christmas blowout, a bit of relaxation, slumped in front of the television, watching something good on TV or Netflix or your other streaming provider of choice. There's nothing the matter with that, but just, there's some sort of important things to bear in mind. And I think one of the things to think about is this idea that we should be a little bit more mindful. Now, I know people are rolling their eyes at this point, but there's nothing more powerful than actually enjoying stuff as it's going on. In fact, even the brain rights experiences more in more depth when you're actually spending time enjoying the current time. And if you've got to Christmas Day and you've got some people coming and you're so busy running around like a mad thing, putting yourself under pressure, stressing yourself out, ready for a row, having a row, wondering then about, as everyone leaves, about whether they still hate you, what's going to happen next year, you end up in that sort of mindset where you've never actually noticed the good things which are going on and managed the things or the problems that might be standing in front of you. And so it's interesting to make sure that whatever you're doing over Christmas, do it mindfully. If you're going to be drinking a bottle of wine, why not do it mindfully and really enjoy it? When you're eating your Christmas lunch, why not slow down and eat it mindfully? Maybe rather than sitting stuffing your face, which is what I'll be doing, in front of a television, although actually it won't be in front of the television this year. But rather than doing that, why not sit at the table and eat mindfully? You'll find you get more from your food, you get more from your drink, but you also get more from the company of people around you. So it's that thing about making sure that you really enjoy what you're eating. If you're going to eating some lovely chocolates or a Christmas pudding, which is not something we have perhaps every day, why don't you just really revel in them and thoroughly enjoy them? When you're cooking, and if you enjoy cooking, then why don't you just really take your time, allow yourself an extra hour, and appreciate the time that you're spending, both for yourself and for the guests that you're having. All these pressure points are points where overwhelm or expectation come to bear. And really planning allows you to know what these pressure points might be in advance and actually have a plan to deal with them. But also when you reach them, to be more aware of what's going on so you're more in control of yourself. And, it's one of the classic things. If you're mindful, you know what's going on. And the next thing you need to think about for Christmas, perhaps, is that you need to spend some time for yourself. And whoever you are, whether you're the person that's the sort of caregiver or the cooker or the present wrapper or whoever it might be, you do need to have some time for yourself. We can actually end up in this situation where we don't look after ourselves at Christmas. And so, particularly in the run-up to Christmas, we've been often very busy and trying to get everything done at work. And then we have this Christmas holiday and then we're immediately ill because we've done that thing where the stress of getting ready for Christmas has wiped out our biome a little bit, wiped out some of the positive gut bacteria. And then we end up with a sort of stress-based cold or a bit of flu or something. And so make sure that you are spending time for yourself and making sure that you, whilst you're enjoying any sort of form of indulgence and doing it mindfully, that you're also getting stuff that's good for you. Perhaps up your micronutrients or vitamins over this period of time, just so you're getting some positive food inside of yourself. I know myself, I tend to, once I get on a downward spiral and naughty food, then I tend to thoroughly enjoy myself. But I always think it's good to start the day with a really healthy smoothie or something, just so you set yourself up. And also make sure you get some exercise, because it is important that over this Christmas period you get some exercise, you do move around. And if you can wrap exercise into play, then so much better. There's no doubt that if you've got kids or animals, that they'll be playing in boxes rather than those expensive toys you bought, which got you into debt. They'll be playing in the boxes, so why not have more time for play? And so that sort of mindful having time for yourself, then mindfully having time for your family, acting as your mother, father, cousin, sister, auntie, brother, whatever that role might be, enjoy it and, thoroughly revel in it. And if you're a grandparent as well, and thoroughly enjoy the time you're going to spend. Because really, Christmas is a bit like Valentine's Day and birthdays. It's one day where you spend time being mindful about the people around you as well as yourself. And we sort of lose the symbolism of the mindfulness because, of course, what we've ended up doing is focusing on stuff and presents and such like. And so make sure that you have time for yourself, time for your kids and family. Also time for your guests. So if you're having guests, make sure you actually give them some attention rather than being stressed and running around the place. It's often the time where, over this period, where we're travelling to meet families. Often there's a journey to get involved with. Often there's there's this thing where we're sometimes staying with families. But make sure you spend the time thinking about and enjoying the time you have together. Now, if you're not going to enjoy the time, so you've already set yourself up for a failure, then that's a problem. Perhaps you readjust your mindset. But you also have to make sure that you are going to spend time being a good guest and being accommodating and prepared to help and muck in, but also being a good host as well in the sense of spending some quality time. People who usually come to see you, not just to unwrap a present and to ooh and ah at it. Of course, if you've got small children around the place, the focus is usually helpfully taken by those people. But Christmas is not the time to air family grievances. You either do them beforehand, manage people's expectations, or you do them afterwards in some sort of review. But, save your drama for another day. There's enough going on already. And if you're a married couple and you've got guests and you've got children, all that sort of stuff, make sure you spend a little bit of time together. Make sure you spend a little bit of time on your own relationship. Now, if you're on your own, that might be the relationship you have with your parents, and maybe you're not seeing them, and maybe you need to make a phone call or have a Skype conversation, or even just send a text or a WhatsApp. All the channels are there. But if you're a partnership, if you and your significant other are together and you've got a day together, make sure you tackle this day shoulder to shoulder, head on, as a team. Make sure that you're facing these challenges and playing to your strengths. So this now is not the time to be setting, say, a very detail-focused person a highly complex job. That's the wrong day for it. It's not the time to be saying, well, actually, I prefer to work on my own. Let's share all the tasks. It's not the best use of the time. If you're a couple, face it as a team, play to your strengths. If one of you's good at one thing, do that thing. If you're the one's best at something else, do that thing. The one that normally cooks, let them cook. If you're asking someone who never normally cooks to cook the Christmas dinner, it's going to be a nightmare for everybody. Unless, of course, that's your thing. If you like swapping around, then that's absolutely okay. But on the whole, especially if you've got a big family or a big group, play to your strengths. And playing to your strengths is a sign of good self-esteem, so make sure you're around that. Now, of course, some people like to get away at Christmas, and of course, remember that travel has all sorts of benefits for resilience, both the perspective side, the mindful side of travelling and all the hoo-ha that can go with that. I mean, see each delay as a possibility to learn how to manage your control mechanisms. I know that sounds very wordy, but it's a good point, isn't it? If you're going to be in an airport waiting because someone's, because the traffic or the weather or someone's inconveniently flying a drone around, there's nothing you can do about that. And you need to figure out what you're going to control and how you're going to manage yourself through that period. And also, one of the top tips that someone told me once, and I actually think is a great tip, is to read a lot of fiction over the New Year, over the Christmas period. And you might want to do more worthy stuff of the New Year period, but fiction is a good time for the festive season because actually it really allows your brain to be absorbed into a thrilling story and such like. And for some people, this whole period is a time where they can stop, they can rest, they can refresh, they can renew. And for some people, they take this period actually because nobody else is working to sort of get ahead, to become more competitive and to work harder. If that's your thing, fill your boots, but make sure you do get a chance to rest and renew and repair. I mean, even accountants who have this annual surprise of the year, sort of year end, need to spend time over Christmas holidays. I think the only people who are really busy at Christmas, purposefully, or sort of entertainers, I should say, and sports people. For the rest of us, it's a choice how we tackle that. And then as we come into the new year, we get into this situation of this whole potentially stressful or pressure point of New Year's resolutions. Now, New Year's resolutions on an average fail almost as soon as they're set, and so it does make me wonder why we bother. But it is a good point at the turn of the year to be able to sit back and reflect on what's worked this year and celebrate some of the successes of the year and to build on what's worked well this year. And often we spend a lot of time thinking what didn't work so well and what we would do better. But sometimes we need to think about what did work well, or what was good about our lives this year and how we're going to build on those things. Because success, happiness, potential comes from what we do best, not from what we do worst. So it's sometimes worth sitting down and getting a piece of paper and just writing down, those sorts of three things. What went on last year? What was great? What am I going to do more of? And then also what went on last year? What could be better? And what am I going to change rolling forward? What were my stresses? What were my failures? What were the things that I really want to do differently? And also for those of you who like to have a sort of a career plan, it's always good to get your long-term goals out and have a look at how you're getting on. Blow the dust off once a year. And I'm a great believer for those of you in relationships who've got what I describe as a happy ever after contract. Sort of a deal with your partner about how you live together, how you work together, how you communicate, how you have mutual aspirations. It's a good point to sit back and review and enjoy and revel in the fact that the that you're together, you are where you are, and that actually, there's a time to move forward together. Because often this is a time when people realise they shouldn't be together anymore. And there's a real incidence of divorce, job change and such like in January, because it's that point of renewal. So actually, if you've got something that's a longer term thing, overarching your life and your career, then this helps put any sort of short term difficulties in perspective. So the key, for example, is not to just have things you're going to give up. If you're just going to give up wine for three weeks, giving up a single behaviour rarely helps. And so actually most people know that. They need to set some form of goal. And that goal needs to be split into an outcome and a process goal. So you might say, in the end of the year, I'm going to be 30% more fit. I'm going to be 25% more active, or I'm going to, by the end of the year, I'm going to have achieved 1,000 miles of travel, whatever it might be. But they're very much focused on the output of the year that you want to have. And then you might have some sort of process goals. Within 3 months I'm going to have done this, or 3 months I'm going to have done that. Be more specific about the actions you're going to take. So rather than just fixing a behaviour, create a goal and then have a plan. Now, often people use this mnemonic of SMART goals, and I'm not a fan, I have to say. So as you're beginning to roll your eyes around SMART goals, I quite like this idea that Brendan Burchard came out with, which are dumb goals, D-U-M-B. Now, I know it's a bit of a tortured metaphor because actually he's just tried to make it opposite of smart. But this is this idea that you should be looking forward and that your aspirations should be dream-driven. That's the D. This idea that actually you put aside something tangible and you say to yourself, what are my dreams? What am I really, if nothing was an object, if money was an object, whatever it is, what it would be, what could I do? Could I dream that, I could be working in the Caribbean in the next 3 or 5, 6, 20 years, whatever it might be, for example, or living in Hawaii, or, sorry, maybe these are my things, but do you know what I mean? You're these ideas of dreams, because we all know the difference between a dream and a goal is a plan. So actually you can easily wrap a plan around a dream. And I think it's interesting because it takes the top off for it. It releases your aspirations to be a bit more creative around this idea. And then the idea of you as being uplifting, is that something from which you find a natural motivation? So as you begin to talk about these dreams, you'll recognise the ones which are fantasies. In other words, which are just sort of wild ideas. And you'll notice the ones in your body and in your mind that spark your enthusiasm and imagination. These are things that you're uplifting. You think, actually, maybe I could do something with this dream. And then M stands for methods, and I mean this is where the analogy gets a bit tortured, because methods actually means habits or strengths. So really this is this thing where you're saying to yourself, how do my dream, how does this motivation and this sense of it being uplifted, how does this fit in with this idea that my natural habits would allow me to get there? Now, if you've got a dream that goes against your natural habits, so let's say you've got a dream to be, something that needs a huge amount of work, but actually your habit is not to do any work, then that might be more of a fantasy. Or you have to change your workload, of course. But what you're thinking about are, what are my natural habits? What are my top strengths? What are the sorts of rhythms around which I work or live my life? What are the sort of key sort of areas in terms of uplifting, in terms of my desires and dreams to help each other, for other people, for example? But if you never normally help each other, so your method goes against that, you're going to have to think about that method. And then B stands for behaviours. So it's actually about linking things together and saying, what are going to be the triggers for my new behaviours to reinforce these habits that creates this uplifting sense to create my dreams? And what are those triggers? And then when I've exhibited those behaviours, then what are the rewards I'm going to have? And those rewards can come from feeling good. There could be physical rewards. There could be rewards that you have thought about in advance and planned as part of your process goals. So I like the idea of dumb goals because I'm bored of smart goals, and you know what? Being different every now and then isn't a bad thing. So look, it's the end of 2018. I'd like to wish any listener to this podcast, all the best for the festive season, and looking forward to obviously spending time with you across the course of 2019. We've got some exciting shows planned. In fact, we have some new shows planned. So hopefully you'll join me in those things. Something quite creative is coming out within the next 3 or 4 months. And linking together some of my other passions in life, dreams that I've got, which are uplifting, and play to my natural strengths. And, I'm changing some of the ways I worked in order to get me there. So I'm using this dumb methodology myself. You're always welcome to go to our site, qedod.com/podcast, to look at more podcasts. Or if you want to have a look at how to contact us, you can click on the contact button. And of course, if you want to join in, subscribe to iTunes or give us a review, that's always very, very welcome. That would be delightful if you wouldn't mind. And if you want to go on the site and click on qedod.com/free ebook, you will get your hands on the existing Resilience Unravelled ebook, which will be changed in the end of this year. So those of you who have got it, there'll be a new one coming during 2019, and those of you who haven't got it, well, why not grab it while it still lasts? And next year we'll be doing all sorts of online courses and masterminds. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. So have a great time, all of you. Have a mindful and purposeful festive period, and all the best for the new year. Take care.